Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Say. The Chashav Olam, it takes time on the day off to learn Torah. Bez Hashem. I hope. I know that Rabbi Gottesman said that I'm here to teach the Olam. It could be the Olam is more here to teach me. I'm going to be discussing a story that is actually a din Torah that I haven't fully paskened yet. This din Torah started around half a year ago. It was.
Was you talking to this track then?
What? Yeah. So
yeah.
So Zachar Vazoi, the two people called me up. They presented it that it's like an amicable situation, not a contentious. They just want to come for a little, das Torah or whatever they called it, hadracha. So I thought it was like a small thing. It wasn't like a big deal. So I didn't really emotionally prepare myself, and I didn't even plan on having the parties sign a shtar berurim with arbitration agreement. And I figured I could do it myself. L'maisa, what happened was that these two guys walked in. They're Baruch Hashem. The first part is taka true. It's not contentious. They're still on good terms, I think. I hope, as of a few weeks ago. But L'maisa, it was a very large amount of money that they were disputing. And right away, like the first 5 minutes when these guys walked into my house, they one of the parties said, this is a $5 million claim. So I'm like, I better get my act together. I quickly printed out a shtar berurim, and Baruch Hashem, they signed it. And but I still have the disadvantage of being a dayan yochid. So ever since when I've been trying to give shiurim about this topic, to help me paskin the din Torah. So I already paskin a large chelik of it, Bez Hashem. I don't know if it's correct, but what I paskin, but there still is a very large section of the din Torah which involves the inyan of Shemer Sachar, which I have not yet paskined. Now I'll tell you the story. No, so before we get into the story, I just want to give a little bit of akdama to the inyan of Shemer Sachar. So we have three different types of shemer. There's a shemer chinam, and then there's a shoyel, and then there's a shemer sachar and a seicher, which generally have similar halachas. Now, when it comes to shemer chinam and shoyel, those are topics that come up more on the shiloh line, not as actual dinei Torah, because generally in the business world, it's not so common to have a situation of a shemer chinam or a shoyel. It's possible, but not so common. When it comes to shemer sachar, that's one of the most common scenarios that a person can find himself in the business world. And you'll be surprised how many people have experienced being a shemer sachar b'yodim or v'lo yodim at some point in their lives. If shemer sachar could, first of all, shutfim, like we just saw in the Chasam Sofer that Rabbi Gottesman was saying over shutfim, the halacha is many times they're considered shemer sachar, not always. Many times they're considered shemer sachar. Now, also, let's talk. Okay, yeah. Shutfim very frequently are shemer sachar. Asset manager, a syndicator of a deal, is always going to be considered a shemer sachar because he's getting a benefit. He's not an investor. So an asset manager who's taking money from other people to manage
the override.
Yeah. So he gets a benefit because of the fact that he gets some kind of either a management fee or he gets syndicator's fee. So that type of fee is gonna make him into a shemer sachar. Additionally, the Gemara says that craftsmen are shemer sachar. Now, a craftsman is somebody. Let's say you take your car to a mechanic. So the mechanic is going to have a din of a shemer sachar because he's getting a fee for fixing the car, and the Gemara explains that because of that fee, he automatically also becomes a shemer sachar on the chayfetz. So if something happens to the car when it's in the mechanic's shop, a lot of times they have a sign up that says that b'shum panim va'ifin, we take absolutely zero achrayus, and if anything happens, it's your achrayus, and you have to pay us kedayma. But without such a disclaimer, the mechanic will become a shomer sacher on the car. Now, it's not just if you bring your car to a mechanic, also if you hire somebody to come to your house and you're not there to fix something, right? Let's say you hire a plumber to come to your house. So the plumber technically is a shomer sacher. Now, obviously we know that there's no din shmira on karkois. So it's very, very likely that he will be potter, but Lamaisi has din of shomer sacher, which has a lot of ramifications as well. And we have also just one more category, which is also a little bit surprising. But if you look in the beginning of the Siman in the Pischei Tshuva and in the Kesef HaKadoshim, they both say they discuss. They don't say, they discuss whether or not a misharesas, domestic helper, is considered a shomer sacher. The question is this misharesas is getting paid to perform certain services. They're not actually getting paid for shmira. So that gives rise to the question whether they have a din of a shomer sacher or not. Now that applies as well to a babysitter or a playgroup mora. I remember when I went to Eretz Yisrael to take a faher, I took one of my fahers I took by Rabbi Naftali Nussbaum Shlita, one of the biggest dayanim in Eretz Yisrael, I think. So he gave one of his questions was a child went to a babysitter and they came in with two pairs of shoes with two shoes and they left with one shoe. So the shaila is if the babysitter is a shomer sacher on the shoe and whether or not how much you have to pay for one shoe out of a pair. You can't really replace that single shoe. So that was the question that he posed to me. So that depends on the shaila whether misharesas is considered a shomer sacher. She might even be more than a misharesas. She might have the status of a uman, of a craftsman. But that is a question whether or not she will have a din of a shomer sacher. So now the case that happened was like this. Basically we'll call them the investor and the manager. So you had an investor. In this case, actually, it was the investor who actually found the deal. He heard about a property somewhere down in deep south, in one of the big cities. For there, Lafi Hasagosam, it was a big city, and there was a few properties that were available for purchase, which at the time seemed like a very good deal. This was when interest rates were low and money was basically free, and it seemed like an amazing deal, and everybody was very excited about it to an extent that they even had some extra money to play around with, which comes into the entire that somehow they played a little shtick with the mortgage and they inflated the price a little bit. Chas v'shalom. Yeah, they didn't. They weren't in my office at the time to ask me whether they were allowed to do that, but that's what happened over there, which was very negay for the Dintayra. I'm not sure if we'll get to this aspect of it, but Lamaisa.
The fact that it was real estate, you said earlier that there's no shomer.
Oh, so we're gonna get. There's going to be a lot of aspects of. I mean, a lot of things might seem pasha to the olam, but I felt that this was an interesting case that could bring out a lot of points about shomer sacher, which So I mean, it's possible that there are many reasons why shomer sacher doesn't apply, but I think it's going to be educational to go through all. It actually with Siyat L'Shmai, I think that it covers a lot of the different cases in Siman Shin Gimel. Are going to be able to shed light on this case. So basically, you had this guy found this group of buildings. He approached an investor who, the investor approached the manager. Now, the manager happened to have a skill with getting mortgages, which, like we mentioned, was for some reason important to them to get a good mortgage for this thing. Now, so he approached the manager, and very, very bizarrely, they did not do any operating agreement. They didn't even. There's absolutely no documents, no text messages, and no emails, and no WhatsApps. Nothing. Barely any articulated words regarding this. I think it was a $16 million purchase. There was like a lot of grunting and hand motions, but very little. Yeshivish. Yeah, very yeshivish situation. So what happened was So basically, he approached his manager.
Ruben Shimon, give us.
Yeah, Ruben is the investor. Shimon is the manager. Ruben approaches Shimon and tells him, "I have this group of buildings. I want you to help me by managing it and by getting a mortgage." So they bought the buildings, and the bank compelled them to take a third party manager, a management company, a goyish management. Now, what happened was that this goyish company actually fudged the books, and when they bought the property, it was 65% occupied. Most of them were a very large percentage of them were paying rent.
Yeah.
By the time that they came to Besdin, there was 15% of the building was paying rent. 50% of the building was paying rent. Now, there had been a COVID kufa where there was a moratorium on evictions, so that contributed to this. But this management company was very, very negligent in collecting rents. And not only that, they lied to this manager, and they told him that there were a lot more rents being collected than were actually being collected. Now, this manager was a little bit asleep on the job. But he had a little bit of an excuse. But basically, what happened was that he went through a very, very difficult personal situation with this other building. He got sued, and it was a very dangerous situation for him financially, and I think there were also criminal elements to it as well. So he had his hands really tied up. Sai physically, Sai emotionally, he was very much limited at the time. Is the audio going over?
The audio is going over the video.
We're hearing the audio, but we haven't been able to see the rubber last couple minutes. Oh,
Yeah, give us a second. We can try to give us a second. We'll start. Oh, no.
that's better.
Okay, you got it.
Now you're on?
Yeah.
So now, Daniel, just to see if we can make them larger. Continue, please.
Yeah. So that's what this manager went through. Now, really, they were compelled, like I mentioned, they were compelled by the bank to take this to have this goyish management company manage the building. But Lamaisa, once the investor Ruvain found out about what was going on, so Ruvain obviously he took matters into his own hands. He said this is unacceptable. He was able to bring in a Jewish manager from Lakewood who Baruch Hashem, when they walked into my house, they said this thing is a total loss. Lamaisa, Baruch Hashem, now we're at the point where they're both fighting over the building, trying to figure out who can keep the building. There's still a loss, but they have very high hopes. Baruch Hashem, now 50% of the building is paying rent. So there's hopes that this thing is going to turn around. It's still a very bad environment for real estate. So they're still in a bad situation, but B'ez Hashem, they're hopeful that things could turn around. Now, the investor, basically what happened was like this. He borrowed money. He borrowed $4 million.
This is Shimon, right?
Shimon, yeah. I'm sorry, Ruvain. Ruvain was the investor. Shimon was the manager. Shimon didn't put in any of his own money. Ruvain borrowed $4 million to put in to this building. Now, he borrowed it at 20% interest with a very interesting type of heter iska, not the common heter iska that most people use. A very a mechudesh dika heter iska, novel approach that this Ruvain himself created, which was Baruch Hashem. It's a decent heter iska. Now, so he was paying 20% interest. At this point, he's in this building for $7 million. And he was when they actually came to the Torah, they were only in for $5 million, and they asked for, basically he was asking to be compensated $2.5 million by his shutaf. He felt that now his shutaf agreed right away when he realized what was going on. Shimon agreed to sign everything over to Ruvain. He has absolutely no connection. He has no schus in the building. He said, I'm giving everything up. But Ruvain tied to him that you have personal responsibility for what happened over here. And there were a number of reasons why he alleged that Shimon should have personal responsibility. One of the reasons was because he claims that they articulated through their interesting way of communicating that there was that there was personal responsibility. That's number one. Shimon denied it. Number two, because the profit breakup was very unusual. Usually, when you have an investor, and Kal v'chomer, if the investor is the one who actually found the property, the investor should get at least 60 or 70%, and the manager should get maybe 30 or 40%. In this scenario, the manager, they actually agreed to split a 50-50. So he was timing that Adam Maidim, it's clear from the breakup of profits that it was an unusual deal where it's likely that you, Shimon, agreed to take personal price. That was number two. Number three, he tied that because he brought in some Choshen Mishpat concepts, other Choshen Mishpat concepts to support this idea that if there's no agreement otherwise, then the fact that one person is the investor and the other person is the manager would automatically entitle the investor to collect from the manager Shimon's personal assets. And that was the third reason. And the fourth reason was because of Pshia. He claimed that Shimon was a Pesheah. Now, the first three parts of the Din Torah, I sort of paskin. I didn't, I'm not sure if the parties are 100% aware that I paskin, but I did give that a psak. But the fourth part of the Din Torah, the Pshia part, we didn't really go into that much because these people were friends, and they didn't, when you start bringing up allegations of Pshia, especially in this type of sensitive situation where Shimon went through a very difficult time in his own life, that tends to fray the friendship. So they didn't want to go into all the details. They went into some of the details, and now we're at the point where Ruvain's saying that he wants me to give an initial psak on Pshia, whether or not the Taina of Pshia is likely to succeed, and based on that, he's going to decide whether he wants to go into all the gory details. So just to analyze the question of Pshia. So, like we mentioned, this manager would automatically have a din of a shomer sachar. Now, like Rabbi Gaddis was mentioning, we're dealing obviously with karka. There are a few different aspects to the Pshia. There's the aspect of the fact that he didn't collect. He was not motivated. He wasn't Zoriz in collecting rents, making sure that the rents got collected. So there's a loss of the actual rent money, right? That's number one. Number two, he could have been more aggressive in actually renting out apartments, and then he would have raised the occupancy, and then the building would have more value. It's number two, and also he would have collected more rents. Number three, there is also the aspect that because he didn't collect the rents, therefore right now the building has a lot less value than it should have had. So the value of the building plummeted because of the fact that the rents weren't collected and because of the fact that the apartments weren't filled. Those are the three aspects. So there was also some damage to the building. At the first session, I thought that it was presented to me that there was a lot more damage. Now they're saying that there wasn't that much damage. They said there was a leak or something, and there was a lot of mold, etc. That obviously has a din of karka, although there is a very big question whether real estate has a din of karka or because it's talashul seif chibroi, whether it's because it's attached to the ground, it's not the actual ground. There are poskim who say that it has a din of metalflin. Also, there's a shita of the Shach in Siman Tzadi Hey that the Shach paskins, like the Rambam, who says that there is a chiyuv pshia on karka as well. So there's two reasons why to be mechayiv, even though it's karka. As far as the rents are concerned, I was actually planning on doing the opposite direction, but once it's brought up, there is a very interesting Pischei Tshuva in Siman Reish Chav Zayin. So there's a halacha that karka is exempted from shmira. Also, avodim and shtaris are exempted from shmira. Karka is exempted from shmira because of the fact that karka is not metaltal, you can't move it. And then there's a din that shtaris are exempted from shmira because of the fact that it's ein gufay mammon. So ein gufay mammon means that the shtar itself is not the mammon which is getting lost. So there's a question: what's the halacha if there's no shtar? You ask somebody to be a shomer on, or you the actual case that they're discussing is when you sell a chayvis about balpeh. You sell a promissory note hasn't been written down. So you lend somebody money and then you sell that chayv to somebody else. Does that have a din of shtaris or does that have a din of metalton? So there's a Shar Mishpur who says that it would have a din of oinah and presumably also a din of shmira if you give a chayv to somebody to watch. However, the Pesach Tshuva and Simon Reish Chav Zayin brings down that there are a number of achronim who argue. This is a Divrei Chaim who says that it has a din of karka, and there's a Ktsois that I think that's the breakup. There's a Ktsois who says, let me just look one second. The Ktsois. I'm sorry. The Ksais also holds like the Shar Mishpat that it has a din of a metalton and there is a din of no. But the Divrei Chaim, not the Divrei Chaim in Sans, this is the Divrei Chaim. I think this is the Divrei Chaim Chaim Urbach. He has Sefer Chosh Mishpat. He says that there's no din of no on a choiv. Because just like karka is not movable, and that's why it's nismaid from the din of oinah and from shmira, so too a choiv is also not movable. You can't move a choiv. A choiv is an obligation that a person has. So it's not a metalton. So even though it's not karka technically, it's not shtaris, but it has a din of karka because it's not movable. And there's also a Chavaz Das that says there's no din oinah on a choiv. And he says because it has a din of a shtar. This is a Pesach Tshuva in Simon Reish Chav Zayin and Chosh Mishpat all the way at the end of the Simon. And so according to that, the chayvus that the people had would also be exempted from the din of shmira. But let's analyze the din of shmira itself. So as akdama, we mentioned before that there's three types of shoyim. Shomer chinam, shoyel. Shomer chinam is only chayiv on pshia. Shoyel is chayiv on oinsim, and the shomer sachar and the soicher are somewhere in between. Now, there are, for simplicity, I'm going to give 4 different categories of differences between a Shomer Chinam and a Shomer Sachar. There are more. If you look at the Rukiv Eger that I put on the Ma'ar Mekaymis, he splits up one of the categories into 2. But let's just say that there's 4 different categories. There's one category, we'll call it Gneva V'Aveda, which means that the Gemara explains that the Shomer Chinam is chayiv on damage which has a certain likelihood of happening. If you have, let's say, a Ruach Mitsuya comes and is mazik the thing, that's called a pshia that a Shomer Chinam is chayiv on. A Shomer Sachar is chayiv also on Gneva Aveda, and Gneva Aveda includes even a Ruach She'ena Mitsuya. So the first category is that things which are less likely to happen has a din of Gneva Aveda, and a Shomer Chinam is pater, a Shomer Sachar is chayiv. So that's one difference between Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sachar. Shomer Sachar is chayiv on things which are less likely to happen, whereas the Shomer Chinam would only be chayiv on things which are more likely to happen. The second category is Gneva Ba'inus, which is the topic that's discussed in Shulchan Aruch Sif Beis and Gimel. And the Shulchan Aruch brings down 2 shittas about Gneva Ba'inus. Gneva Ba'inus, there's 2 different cases of Gneva Ba'inus. One case is where you did a very, very good shmira on the item. You hit it in some kind of very, very deep cave underground. Very, very hard to imagine the thing would be there. Nevertheless, a ganav came and stole it. That's called Gneva Ba'inus, and the Machlokes Rishonim whether or not you're chayiv on Gneva Ba'inus. So Shulchan Aruch brings down 2 shittas, and the Shach paskins that you're pater. The second case of Gneva Ba'inus is a case where where the shomer himself had an oinus. Let's say a shomer gets sick. Shomer comes down, Rachmanan Litzlan, with COVID or something maybe even worse, and he pasha cannot be shomer anything, right?
He's using the daita, which is hard for us to understand.
Right, or nitra daita.
What does that mean?
Right. Well, nitra daita, unfortunately, if you come to unfortunately our business is very busy also with Even Ezer. If you come to Even Ezer division, you'll see a lot of nitra daita. I don't know if halacha will accept that as being mamash nitra daita.
Sanity, claims of insanity.
Yeah, our scenario might have a gather of nitra daita because this person was under tremendous stress and he wasn't. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
It's very important.
Yeah. It's a very gray area. What's going to be considered nitra daita? Or let's say the Nesiva says, right? The Nesivas and the Ktsois, the Ktsois Sifkan Gimel and the Nesivas Sif Cotton Hay both say that if the shomer is in danger of hefsid mammon, that would also be considered a oinus haguf of the shomer, which would also be telling this machloikis rishonim about geneva boinus. And this machloik, right? So this machloikis would apply as well to aveda boinus, right? The achronim over here speak out. The Ksais and Sivkot and Aleph and the Sivkot and Beis speak out that just like Geneva B'Oinus, when there's a Oinus in the Dover Hanishmar, right, is telling in this Machlokes Rishonim, so too, Aveda B'Oinus, where there's a Oinus that the Shomer experienced Begufoi, would also depend on this Machlokes Rishonim, whether or not the Shomer Sacher is Chayev or not. Now, Rabbi Akiva Eger, on Steve Bays, differentiates between these two cases, and he wants to say that he brings down a sheet in Rishonim that differentiates between if there's a oinus beguf hashomer where he's potter and when there's a oinus in the chayfetz where you hid the chayfetz well and it was nevertheless stolen. You put a mechitza shel barzel or whatever, and the chayfetz was stolen anyways, whether or not you're going to be chayiv in that situation. But generally, I'm going to categorize these two things as one category. The second category, which is geneva b'oinus or oinus beguf hashomer, that's machlokes rishonim. Both sheets is brought down to Shulchan Aruch, and the Shach Lamaisa is Mekel in that case. Now, the third case where there's a difference between Shomer Chinam and Shoyel is also a few different a grouping of a few different cases. This is brought down. There's a few stories that are brought down in Parak HaMafkid, 2 blocks before the end, and there's also it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Reish Sadi Aleph, Sif Cotton, Sif Chav Aleph. Chav Gimel. These cases are where, as the Ksais describes in Siv Cotton Beis and Siman Shin Gimel, Siv Cotton Beis, the Ksais says that a description of one of the cases is when the Shomer is Neschaven L'Toiva. He has a good justification for what he did, that he thought in his mind that this was the right way to be shomer the item. Or the other cases where the shomer did not properly articulate the instructions to somebody else. For example, let's say the case in the Gemara is somebody sent a shliach to go ahead and get some kashus. I don't know how that translates into English. For his sheikhar, and he told the shliach to take it from one pile, but he didn't tell him to take it from that pile and not from the other pile, and he mistakenly took it from the pile which was pekadon. So the Gemara says by Shomer Chinam your potter, because he told him to take it from pile number 1, and that was the right pile. But a Shomer Sacher will be chayiv, the Rishonim say, because he didn't say don't take it from the other pile. So that's another differentiation between Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sacher. So either in the Schaven L'Toiva, or where the Shomer is where you don't properly articulate the instructions to somebody else. You don't tell them exactly what to do. You tell them something.
Shomer Sacher is still chai.
The Shomer Sacher is still chai, but the Shomer Chinam is potter.
Why?
Because he should have been more careful.
Should have asked.
No. I'm talking about the case where, again, let me just I wasn't 100% clear. A shomer accepts shmir on something, right? And then he tells he gives that item over to somebody else, and he doesn't properly articulate the instructions to that third person. So it's a case where shomer shemasel shomer would be potter, either because it's somebody in his household, it's his mother or his children, right? Or it's somebody that he's ragel hafkid, right? The Bailam frequently is mafkid things by that person. So the shomer had a right to hand the item over to that person, but the instructions that he gave weren't 100% clear. He told him what to do, but he didn't tell him, don't do the wrong thing. Don't do the pshia. He told him, take it from that pile. He didn't say, don't take it from the other pile. So where his instructions weren't 100% clear, there's also a difference between Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sacher. Shomer Chinam will be potter because L'maisi gave him correct instructions. A Shomer Sacher will be chayiv. Just to digress for a second about a case where this is brought out is a situation. There was somebody asked the Shaila that they rented a gown, and then they took the gown. Then they took the gown to be hemmed, and they were under specific instructions by the rental company not to cut the gown, only to fold it up and hem it. And L'maisa, they told the person to hem it, but they didn't tell him specifically not to cut it. Now, hemming means pashtus to fold it up, but they didn't articulate clearly that it shouldn't be cut. So that l'chayr will be a scenario where shemer sachar will be chayiv and shemer chinam will be pot. That's the third group of the difference.
Is it Seicher or
A Seicher, a Seicher. Oh, so we're gonna get to that in a second. We're gonna get to that in a second. 1 second. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. So it's a shemer sachar / Seicher. The question is whether there's gonna be a difference in those two cases. And the fourth area where shemer chinam and shemer sachar are different is the case of nam beidna the 90-inch, right? Let's say the case of the Gemara is you have a shepherd, right, who's guarding a flock. He's getting paid to guard the flock, and he takes a nap. He's entitled to his nap. It's very, it's a time for the siesta, or it's nighttime. He has to sleep. He goes to sleep, and a wolf comes and carries off one of the sheep. So the question is he chayiv in that case or not? Because it's a normal time to sleep, but l'maisa, there's machlekes in the Gemara that maybe a shemer sachar is getting paid specifically not to sleep, even though it's normal to sleep. Now, in that case, in the Sivas and Sivkatan in the Simon Gimel, Sivkatan Aleph says that l'kuli alma, the shemer sachar is chayiv. All the places can agree in that case. The chayiv, the Shulchan Aruch is a little bit not clear about that point, but the Nesivas points out that l'kuli alma, the shemer sachar is going to be chayiv. So those are the four groups. Now, in the case that we have, the case I started off with, where you had the asset manager was negligent. He was not as careful to find out what was really going on in this property, right? He has a number of excuses. Let's go through all of his excuses. One excuse is that he had oinus begufay. Right, he was going through a hard time financially, and it was justifiable that he was distracted and he was not as on top of his game. That's number one.
Why is that an excuse? I mean,
is that supposed to handle business pressures all the time, right?
yeah, meaning 80. So 75% he was tired on. He wasn't 100% tired all the time.
I hear it. Maybe. Right.
Saying Lamaisa.
I didn't really like do a Drisas Akiris on this whole in it. Right.
The question is how much is a pile or this person meshubit to this property?
Right.
I mean, when you agree to take care to manage something, how much of your time are you is it understood that you're allotting to it?
The full necessity of whatever the normal professional standards are.
Right.
No, but let's say you have 100 properties that you manage.
Right.
Are you giving 100 properties?
Don't take it. Every property has your shemer sachar on each property.
Right. You shemer sachar on the property.
You can't tell I want to give up 1/100th of my intention.
Right.
So
So the thing is like this. He did hire somebody to go down to the property, and the guy went down, and that guy was also fooled by this management company. So, but the investor is Ruvain's signing. You should have gone yourself, right? He's trying to I have no way of finding out. But Ruvain's signing, yeah,
That's the difference of oinus.
yeah.
Because otherwise it's kind of going to innovate.
Right.
So it has to be a oinus.
No, so Ruvain's signing.
Professional kind of oinus. I'm sorry. That's what due diligence is called.
Right. That's a Ruvain's signing. You should have gone down and figured out what's going on. You shouldn't get fooled like that. But he's signing, right?
You have to come out the chief for that?
No.
It's going to innovate.
Right. If you want to be mechayivim on karka because of the shop, then you'll have
the property manager, the guy who committed the fraud down there, is a gunner. So
right.
You can't name it.
So he's tiny. I had no way of finding out because I couldn't go down. I couldn't go down because I had all these things going on that were preventing me from having the time to go down.
So don't take the deal up.
No, but this happened after he accepted the deal. This litigation that he was going through.
Excited about his mental state. Is that what
his mental and his his ability to have the time to take care of it. You're probably right. It probably is a gneva aveda. It's hard to say that he's honest with gufay. He might be honest with Mamoinu though, right? He might be honest with Mamoinu though. I don't know if there may have been a critical time where he simply did not have the time to go down to the property.
It was his money.
He sent us sites and sees everybody passes has to be honest with Gufay.
Right. So now the question is right. So So of course, like Rabbi Gottesman is saying, Avada, a real Shomer Sachar, right, would be chayiv, like we said, on Einis but Einis begufay, right, Einis begufay, right, Einis begufay he'll be Potter, Einis b'mayna he'll be chayiv, right? So to say that this guy is Einis begufay is very, very difficult. To say that he's Einis b'mayna is a little bit easier, but the question is Shomer Sachar is chayiv on Einis b'mayna. But that's where this Chasam Sofer comes in. So we had the Pischei Tshuva, B'Shem Chasam Sofer says a very, very big chiddush. Who's tight, right? The Chasam Sofer says like this, and this is also a Ktseis Achoshin and Simon Ayin Beis Sivkot and Hay, and there's a Machloik, the Mishnah Melech in Schirus Parak Yod brings down a Machloik about this. They say a very big chiddush. They say like this: we had a halacha that a Shomer Sachar has to be Yoshev u'Mashamer. He has to physically make sure that he's available to be shomer. Additionally, we said he cannot even go to sleep at a normal time when people go to sleep, right? What's a halacha by somebody who has a din of a shomer sachar, but he's not actually being paid an actual fee to manage the company? Now, in the case that we're discussing, this manager Shimon did not get a management fee. It was the Goyish company down in the south that was getting the management fee. Shimon was just getting his share of profits that he will get because he's a manager. So the Chasam Sofer says,
That's a fee.
I don't know, because
Sharing is not a fee.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. Why? Because the Chasam Sofer talks about a case of shutfim, right? The Chasam Sofer talks about Chevra Kadisha, who have a din of shutfim. And the Chasam Sofer wants a taina that in the case of shutfim, there's no din of chiyuv on oinus mammon, and who are din and Nambid and the Naimi Inshi and these other cases. Why? Because the Chasam Sofer says that the only time you're chayiv on Oinus Mammon is if you're being paid specifically to watch, right? If you're not being paid specifically for that, you're just getting an incidental benefit because of the fact that you're being shomer the thing. You will not be chayiv on to be yoshev u'masham.
I just Gemara says so.
What?
The Gemara says that he and is considered to be
So
Fruits
the
are
Chasam
considered to be a
Chasam Sofer L'Chayra is going to say that only applies to the first category that we discussed, the category of likelihood of damage, right? In that category, we're going to say that even though you're not actually getting paid, you're still chayiv. But when it comes to oinsim, right, even oinus b'mamoinoi, the Chasam Sofer holds that you're going to be potter. Now you have
Here he's getting paid to watch. He's getting paid.
not getting paid.
I don't
on
know.
the management part. He's allowed to hire another management company under him, but
But
he's a manager.
I think the entire management fee is going to that company.
But he was a manager. Why is he getting any profit share? The whole umbrella that he's under is
found the
management.
property.
He didn't find the property. The investor found the property.
That's the family property, right?
So he's
That's another big question. Why was this guy getting anything?
Right, because
He's only getting it because he's a manager.
he's a manager, so he hired some manager.
Right.
So, but it's under the investor had nothing to do with the day to day.
One Achrayus was to hire
And stay on top of it. He didn't do that.
That's it.
He didn't do that. The oil's timing good. L'chayra, it's there's a little bit of a question about this because l'chayra, the Chasam Sofer is talking about a case of shutfim, where shutfim are also sharing profits and they have obligations to each other, right? One shutfim has to watch, and because I'm watching today, you're going to have to watch tomorrow. So I am getting paid for my watching, right? But since it's not payment specifically to be Yoshev Mashamer, the Chasam Sofer wants a taina that you're potter. So the l'chayra would be a makom to say that a profit sharing is also like that, but the oil is timing very stark that a profit sharing is going to be considered like you're getting paid specifically for watching, and therefore the Chasam Sofer will not apply. I hear bin mevatel mein das. No, the truth is I was noted this way as well. I'm also noted that l'chayra he will have the achrayus of a shomer sachar. But like Rabbi Gaddis was mentioned before, in this case, being mechayiv and for gneva v'aveda is also a little bit hard because we're talking about karka and we're talking about chayvus.
The two things together.
Yeah, so the shaila is if you can mitzaref Tolsh will save chibrai with the shach, but even that's not necessarily going to help. But we'll get that in a second.
And can the guy kind of accumulate to the like the Cipher? Can he tie to that?
So the Chasam Sofer, I don't even know if you have to say kimli like that because the Ksoi says like that in Simonayim Beis. The Ksoi is not actually as extreme as the Chasam Sofer. The Ksoi is talking about the halach of Pruta de Rabbi Yosef. He's not talking about shutfim or shutfim may be a little bit better than that, because shutfim, the agreement is that because I'm watching today, you're going to watch tomorrow. So it could be that's considered like real payment. Pruda de Rabbi Yosef is a real incidental payment that I'm getting just because the Torah pattered me from giving money to Meshulach that comes to my door when I'm working on being shamer the chayfetz. So it could be that the tzayis would not go as extreme as because I'm safer. You have to know. I just want to briefly, before we get back to the actual case that we're discussing, I just want to digress to the other case that I mentioned about the person who rented the gown, right? Where we spoke about the third category of differences between Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sachar, and those are the stories mentioned in the Gemara, where either you're mischaven l'toiva or you didn't articulate instructions to the other person properly. Clearly enough, right? So the question is, you could declare, is that halacha? Does that halacha depend on the din of gneva b'oinus, right? Or is that similar to stamazoi? The halacha that a shemer sachar is different from shemer chinam. A shemer sachar is chayav gneva aveda in more likely damages, right? In other words, does that compare to the second category to the first category, right? In other words, and what would be the halacha by a seicher or by a uman when they don't articulate instructions properly or not? So I'm not sure what the halacha is. I just know that there is a Vilna Gaon in Siman Reish Tzadi Aleph. Just 1 second. Oh, here it is. The Vilna Gaon on that halacha in Shulchan Aruch, where it says that a person is chayiv if he didn't articulate instructions properly. The Vilna Gaon brings a raya from a case where you were not being given schar specifically for that reason. So l'chayra from the Gra you see that the third category is similar to the first category, and a shemer sachar will be chayiv on the third category, even if he's a seicher or a omer. L'chayra, that's what you see from the Gra. I don't know. I did not investigate to see if there's anybody who's chaylik on that or not. I don't know. I'm not sure. Now, b'chlal, in our situation, right? We're discussing the case of whether or not he's considered oinus or not, right? The question is our situation a case of? I mean, there is a real hezek, right? There were rents that were not collected, right? But it could be that kind of situation is doimet to manias revach rather than actual hafsid. The main hezek. I'm talking about the main hezek. Obviously, money that wasn't collected, you have a $1,000 rent check that didn't come in, 100%, that's a hezek, right? But when you're talking about the devaluation of the building that happened when they walked into Bezin, the building had lost, let's say, $5 million in value, right? That is not so much of a real hezek that happened over here. Nothing actually changed in the building, right?
I mean, the income stream was
The income stream is small, and the Mela,
temporary.
it's a temporary thing, right? So, and it's not really a hezek in the guf hadavar, right? There's no change in the guf hadavar.
It's valueless.
It's not called.
When you're shomering something, you to shomer the income stream too. I don't understand.
Let's say you have a building. Let's say you have a building, and you're trying to rent it out, right? You're trying to collect rent. And I go ahead and I stop you from renting it out, or I stop you from collecting rent, right? I stop the manager from coming to the building.
With a gun?
With a gun. I stand in front of the building, I stop the guy with a gun, he cannot come to his building to collect rent.
No, that's a magic of Garbi or Groma.
Oh. So that's one question. Is it a mazik or is it a grama, right? The other question is perhaps that has a din of manias revach, right? Anytime you're preventing somebody from using his item, like let's say you have a house and I stop you from renting it out. The place can say that has a din. The Gemara says it has a din of manias revach. Mavatal kiser shel chaveroi. The Tosefta is brought down in Yerushalmi. Ein lo yalav el tarumas, right? You have a para, you want to rent it out, and I stop you from renting it out. That's considered it's not considered a hezek. Some of the Achronim explained it has a din of sheves the behemtoi, right? Sheves is means when you stop a person from working. When you stop a person from working, the Torah is mechayiv you for hezek. But if there's sheves the behemtoi, if you stop a person's behema from working and making money for him, then you're not chayiv midin mazik. It's just considered like a gather of manias revach, even though it's really a hefs, but it's a gather of manias revach.
Wouldn't the time to be that would be true if I covered all my expenses and now I just mean the revach. But if you're taking away the income stream, the way that I put down the shaila, it was rented for a long time and they went to zero, then he's having a hazard for your diet.
because he's losing the money that he has to pay for his,
Every business is expensive.
every bill that he has to pay.
Every bill he has
That's
to
right.
pay can't cover the cash flow can't cover the expenses. That's already hazard.
But in
You're running
times,
a real estate business, and everybody knows the profit is in the last X%.
right.
So what about the 80%?
Right.
90% that you have to cover the expenses.
So in the Gemara's times also, there was a task that had to be paid on karka, right? Still, the halacha is, if you lock down the guy's house and he can't sell, he can't rent it out, it has the Israel. It's a Pel de Gazak. But it seems to have a Dinamini Israel. Now, luckily for our sanity and for financial functionality of the world, right? There's a new halacha that we could call upon in times of need and great distress, which is called the halacha of it's in Bezdin circles. It's known as halacha of Zulshvat.
So that please.
Zayin Vav Lamed Shin Peitas. I am not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I think everybody has a different way of pronouncing it, and also many places have a different way of spelling it.
Aramaic?
Yeah. No, it's a place. It's a location. I don't know what language it comes from. It was a location.
Edify us what
Okay.
the story is.
So this ties into this halacha of Zulshvat ties into the Nesivis in Siman Shin, Dalad Shin. Okay, I'm always very careful at home, when I tell my kids to close the Shin Dalads or the Dalad Shins, and or go get something from the Dalad Shin. But it's Siman Dalad Shin, the Nesif Cotton Aleph, Bays. I'm sorry, so Nesif Cotton Bays. So the case over there in Shulchan Aruch is like this. There's a case in Shulchan Aruch where a person had a barrel of wine. He had a barrel of wine, and he gave it over to a porter to carry the barrel of wine. The porter broke the barrel of wine. He broke the barrel of wine. So some Rishonim say that even though a barrel of wine is only marketable today at the price of 4, still, if next week there's going to be a Yom HaShuk, right? There's going to be a Yom HaShuk, and you'll be able to sell the barrel of wine for 5. The halacha is that the porter has to pay the Baal Bayis 5 selah for the barrel of wine. So the Ktsais and the Sivas both struggle with the question of why you have to pay more than the value of the barrel of wine now. The halacha is kol gazlan and mishal m'kshasak zela, and a mazik has a din, a shomer and a mazik have a din of a gazlan. They all have a din of a mazik, which basically means that you pay for whatever the item is worth at the time that you destroyed it. So the Ktsais has a whole shtickle Torah over here why you're chayiv to pay 5. The Nesivus goes on a different mahalach, and this Nesivus emerges many times in Choshen Mishpat. I don't know, I don't remember exactly how many, maybe 5, 6, 7 times in various different cases. The Nesivus says that there's a halacha that when you're getting paid, when you're a shomer sachar, or a payil, or a kablan, or any kind of person who's getting paid, or a shotif, you're mechuyev from Aniyas Revach. You have to pay from Aniyas Revach. Why? He brings down the Gemara. The Gemara says that a person once gave somebody money to go to a certain place, to this place called Zolshvat, and buy wine. And wine was very, very cheap in Zolshvat. He'd be able to bring back the wine and sell it at a great profit in his own town, which we are not made aware of what the location of that town was. But the person who was given the money was negligent. He did not go to Zolshvat and buy the wine. He instead went to sleep, and he slept for a month, and then he came back. He came to the guy and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't buy your wine." The guy telling is, I had a major hefset. I could have, if you would have bought the wine, I would have sold it. I would have made a lot of money. Zok the Gemara, you're mechuyev. Why? Gemara brings down a case that a sharecropper accepted a field. If the sharecropper goes to sleep for 6 months and doesn't plant the field, he's mechuyev to pay to the Baal Bayis whatever the Baal Bayis would have earned in profits from the field. So Zok the Nesivas, this halacha applies to every single shutif and kablan and payil who's getting paid for his services. He has to pay him. You must pay from Aniyas Revach as well. Now, the Chassam Sofer also supports this position very strongly. There are some achroinim who are mefakbik in this, very stark. They're not so supportive of this concept of a poil or shutif or a kablan paying from Aniyas Revach. La halacha, it's very not clear what the sugya d'alma is, how the Batei Din paskin about this question. It should be mentioned though that if you look carefully in the Nesivus over here in Siman Dalad Shin, the Nesivus is very clear that this halacha only applies to scenarios where a person is mamish a peisheya. Person is a peisheya, then he's mechuyev to pay for Menias Ravach. But a person, even though a guy is a shomer sachar, right? So he has to watch out for Gneva Aveda, but he's not mechuyev to pay for Menias Ravach that comes because he was not careful of an unlikely scenario, which will be categorized as right. Unless it's a pesher, he has to be mamish a pesher.
So this, we're back to the whether or not.
We're back to whether or not it's pesher or not. Right. So it looks like I'm going to have to call the parties in and really hash out this question of if there was a real pshi over here. I just want to, in conclusion.
In other words, real pshi under common real estate practice.
Right. Well, I want to also mention one other very important point. We're discussing a lot the halachas of Gneva Aved, right? Now, it happens to be these two people did not sign an operating agreement, but I believe that people that generally in business, kamat all stari shutvas are only mechayev the manager in a case of gross negligence. It's a very common expression to be used, or at least negligence, right? To be mechayev a manager for Gneva Aveda, l'chayra is a very hard thing to do. Because even though they didn't make an operating agreement, it still is it runs counter to minig ha'olam by shutvim to pay only for gross negligence. So mamela, it's very hard to mechayev this person ba'ofen of Gneva Aveda. Again, we have to be mavar. It's very very possible that there were a lot of pshias over here, but the question is going to be how much loss actually is attributable to those pshias and how much loss is going to be attributable to the interest rates going up and property prices going down, and how much loss is going to be attributable to Menias Ravach, which is also going to be a big shaila if we're going to apply the din of Zolshvat or not.
What's there? Some questions?
Yes.
Possible? A person can come to Bezdin and tell that he's putter because the market moved against you.
It's not his fault.
Is that really?
What do you mean? What did he do?
Interest rates went up.
In other words, let's say he would have done everything properly. Let's say his manager would have executed flawlessly,
He would
right?
have got enough cash to cover it, even if interest rates went up.
Okay, but the property still might have suffered a loss. And how much of the loss? In other words, we have a loss, a very large loss. How much of that loss is attributed
It would have been a total loss, it would have been.
right? It might have been a $2 million loss instead of a $5 million loss. But there still would have been a loss. So those $2 million is not going to be chayav for.
So what is he being, what is it in terror about? The loss of value of the property or the loss of income stream because he was.
The income stream, I don't think is that much money. We're told that would be a
Now
200.
it's a total loss, they can't cover it to that.
The income stream we're talking about, let's say $400,000, $500,000. We're not talking
That
about.
you'd be behind for sure, because they should have been more careful who he hired and should have checked it. That clear? That he can be mechayim?
We have to go ahead and be soymach on the shach that's mechayim shia, or be soymach on the k'tzois and the sharon bishvat who would consider this to be metaltal. Right.
Yeah, but also you have to know how much of it could have a good manager turned it around. Maybe you just had, it was a area, post-COVID, nobody was paying rent.
Right. That's another question, right? A lot of the loss of income is attributable to COVID. The question is, how much could he have done? And additionally, I just want to mention that they were trying pretty aggressively to find a manager. It was very hard to find somebody for this property. You know, once it collapsed. So
you're going to come back Dan's going to come back and tell us what happened in the end.
Well, I was already mechayev the person a pretty significant amount of money. I was mechayev him a third of the hefsid.
So you write
The question,
you write this psukim up.
yeah,
You'll send it to us.
yeah, believe that, yeah,
Or you'll
yeah.
have to come back and
Yeah,
tell
but
us.
when you send me the recording, I'll send you them. Okay.
By